Good morning, fellow delegates. I'm here today with another candidate. I am going to interview Ben Woodward, who is running for Nebo School District. Full disclosure, Ben is my candidate 100%. Just like me, he's the other parent who shows up to every single meeting and is there ready to defend our kids and to say, you shall not pass with a lot of this stuff. So Ben, let's get started.
Awesome. Thank you. I really appreciate this opportunity today.
So Ben, why is it that you're running for school board?
So I've got two little ones, a 3-year-old and a 1-month-old. Not quite ready to go to school, obviously, but I wanted to get involved. So last year I started going to the school board meetings. I wanted to see what was going on. I moved out here in 2000, so I was a product of the Nebo School District, and I never really had any problems with it. But I wanted to get involved because with all of this stuff going on around the country, all of this CRT and SEL and everything that's being pushed onto kids nowadays, I wanted to make sure that that's not being pushed in our school district. And I started seeing that a lot of it is. And as you and I have worked with this before, there have been more and more examples in Nebo School District. And so I started to reach out. I started to talk at these board meetings and tried to talk with the administration, say, hey, look, this is what parents are seeing. We're not sure if this is on the up and up, but this is what we're seeing. Can you kind of elaborate on that? And oftentimes they either wouldn't answer our questions, or they'd say, oh, well, that's not happening here, or you don't understand how, that's not actually what that is.
I remember my favorite quote being that wouldn't pass the sniff test here.
We're
a very conservative, little known thing. We're a very conservative district.
Yeah. I wish that were true. I mean, to a point, yes, I believe it's a fairly conservative district. Now that I am a candidate, I've been able to look at voter information. Of course, voter information is public anyway, but I was able to look at it, and yeah, our district is like 80% conservative, voter registration wise. But I'm seeing more and more indications that our school board is not.
And how are you finding this out? How are you finding this out, and what is it that you're doing to?
So I love research. I love looking into district policy. A lot of people don't know that the public board meeting isn't just the only thing that's recorded. Their work session previous to the public meeting is also recorded, and that's public information on their web. And so I've been going through and I listen to these recorded sessions, their work sessions, and I'm finding things like in this last December where they changed the student instruction and materials policy. And
can you explain that? Can you talk about what that is?
Yeah, I can even pull it up here. Let me screen share here. So this is from December. This is the what they changed. The red is what they struck out. The blue is what they added to the policy. So beforehand, it was each individual school could select their curriculum for any particular course based off of a recommended list or an approved list by the state school board. And in December, the Nebo Board of Education changed their student instruction and materials policy to include this section here, 5.2, which, selection of instructional materials. The Associate Superintendent of Curriculum shall ensure that a district curriculum committee is organized as needed. The committee is authorized to vet any instructional materials. When the committee vets instructional materials, it may reject, recommend, or adopt the materials. The district curriculum committee must include at least the following: one parent of a student currently enrolled in a class for which instructional materials are being considered. Now that in and of itself hasn't changed. The district did have kind of a curriculum selection committee, and it did need to have at least one parent. So that hasn't really changed, but they added it to this policy. And you can see down here in the struck out part, it does say at least one parent. So they just kind of moved it up. But it says the district curriculum committee recommends primary source materials. The particular grade level course or subject area for which they are recommended must be taught from among the recommended primary source materials. So they're making this district curriculum committee, and then the committee will choose the curriculum for any given grade or course. And then, as Superintendent Rick Nielsen said, if they're going to go through the trouble of selecting, approving these curriculum materials, they expect every school in the district to follow those curricular decisions. So they've taken that school selection out of the process, and now they have to use what the district curriculum committee chooses.
And there is no questioning. Is that correct? Did I understand that? I thought I heard that before, that you cannot question it. I know I'd heard something about just being a taxpayer doesn't allow you to look at the curriculum anymore.
So that's further down under the review process. Oh yeah. So also for whenever there's a somebody wants to challenge the curriculum that's been selected, either a textbook or an activity or whatever it is, each school has a school community council, and it is subject to open meetings laws. So it's open to the public and it's recorded, and it has to be half district employees, half parents. They were the ones that had that review process, and parents could go and look at what was being challenged. They could give their opinion on what was being challenged. But one of the additions that they added to this was the principal will organize a school level review committee that includes members of the school community council and others selected at the discretion of the principal. It doesn't have a requirement that parents be on that school level committee. The school level committee is also not subject to open meetings laws. So they've taken the review process potentially away from parents. Not saying that any principal has at this point, but the framework that they've implemented can lead to abuse of power because they're not requiring that parents be on that committee.
And we've seen this in other counties where it doesn't matter how many book reports you're bringing in about porn and books. It's the same people, and they practically just laugh and go, yeah, no, and don't even accept it.
Right. So they're taking that review process away, potentially taking that review process away from parents, and they're not subject to open meetings laws, so they're not open to the public. Almost taxation without representation.
Absolutely.
A homeowner pays property taxes that go to the school district, and like right now, I'm a property owner. I pay property taxes that goes to the school district, but my children aren't old enough to go to school. So I'm not technically a parent of a current Nebo school district student, but as a patron, I can't request a review of library materials or curricular materials.
Well, and I had that same problem because when Salem taught that Ebonics is the official language of African Americans, that is something that bothers me as a citizen, as an African American citizen in our community, to have people kind of, well, what's wrong with you? Why don't you use Ebonics? And there's nothing that I can do to challenge that. And I've tried, and I've gone to the schools and I've said, look, I'm here to help. I know a lot of this stuff. I'm very informed, and they're not even welcoming. They act like we're a burden to be there. Have you found that when you go to the school board meetings?
Somewhat. I know some of us, including current parents of students, they asked about equity and what it means to the school district, and the school district said, well, that's not the way we see equity, but if you look at their actions, that's exactly what equity means to them.
Right, which and equity, how would you define it, and how do you think the school board defines it?
Well, I guess the political definition would be equality of outcome, right? Where you're taking almost this level of victimhood.
So what do you think that equity, why is it that people are mistaking equity and equality, or do you think they are?
So equality has historically meant equality of opportunity, and I'm all for that equality of opportunity. That means everybody has the same chance that everybody else, and you get there by traditionally hard work. Despite where you come from, you can make it. I mean, we look at people like Ben Carson. He's not really spoken of very much, but he grew up with nothing. I may be wrong because I don't have the best memory, but
single mom.
I don't think it was. Yeah, single mom. I don't think it was.
And she made him read.
But it was like something very similar.
No, it was a single mom. It was the bad housing situation, and she made him read every single day.
Yeah, and now look where he is. Thomas Sowell is another one. Where you come from doesn't matter. It's what you do with what you have. And so equality of outcome, or equality of opportunity, is where we need to be. Equity has this kind of stigma of, well, to be equitable, means if you are part of some marginal group of people that you need more treatment, you need a different treatment, special treatment. And what equity means is equality of outcome, which is super dangerous. It can't be controlled, and it's impossible to achieve.
And do you feel that our nice conservative little Payson, Nebo area is falling into the equity or the equality side of things?
I do see evidence that it is moving more towards this political definition of equity. If you ask the school district, their equity is, well, for the students who need more, the students get more school resources. And in a way, I believe that the student who requires more tutoring, if we have the resources, let's get them more tutoring. To expect an equality of outcome, that student A and student B should both have the same outcome, is unrealistic, because every individual learns differently. They have different goals, they have different outlooks, they have different aspects of their person. I was never really good at math, advanced math anyway, but I'm good at things mechanical. My younger brother, he took calculus, AP calculus in high school, but I can't expect him to work on a car. So this equality of out means, well, if I can play the bigger victim, then I get more of the things.
And how are they determining that? Have you seen evidence of how they're determining who is quote unquote the bigger victim?
Not here so much in Nebo School District, which is good. They're keeping it, from what I've seen, they are keeping it to more of a merit-based education. I know with the ethnic studies amendment bill that passed, they're now required by state law to have this ethnic studies thing in curriculum, which.
And when does that start?
I'm not sure when it starts. It was passed this last legislation cycle, but that's where they hide all the CRT stuff. Oh, well, this person comes from this culture, and this culture has historically had less, so we need to give them more, or we need to give them special treatment. So they're basing that off of racial groups instead of individuals.
How do you feel about, and I think that it ties in well, but how do you feel about transparency for parents and protecting teachers? Where do you draw the line there?
Well, the Utah State Constitution says that parents have the prime responsibility of education of their kids. And transparency to me means that the school districts, especially board members, they're elected by the parents. They represent the parents, so they need to be transparent with the parents. The school districts need to be transparent with what they do, with their curriculums, what they're teaching. Parents have that right, and there are policies already on the books that parents can go in, they can request a review of curriculum or materials. There are opt-out forms where, okay, well, I don't think my kid should be a part of that, so I'd like to opt them out of that. And the school districts are required to give them an appropriate alternate assignment. So there are those already in process, but with like this policy amendment in December with Nebo School District, we're seeing that they want parents involved, but then they're taking parents out of the process. So they want parents involved as long as they're involved in the way they want parents to be involved.
Right. So how about, in your experience with the board, who do you think is our strongest advocate on the board now?
Oh, I'm not sure. Listening to, I truly believe that they all have the best intentions. I haven't seen any one particular instance where I'm like, wow, they really shouldn't be there. But it's little things. One board member said that she was against, or she was for mask mandates and all this stuff. But as far as any individual board member, they've all had their good and bad moments. I do truly believe that they are well-intentioned. At the same time, I believe that they're not on the same page as parents. We've approached them several times that, hey, we would like you to look into this and tell us what you think. You you know Castle well, and one of the work sessions, they were praising Castle to high heavens. And then the very next board meeting, we showed up and said, okay, well, this is what we would like you to look into based on what is on Castle's website on what they think SEL is, or transformative SEL. And we don't think this is appropriate. There are other SEL programs that would fit state requirements that perhaps they should look at, but we haven't heard anything about that. They just kind of blew us off.
I feel like a lot of people have said that. A lot of people have said, and just like me, we both kind of go in with, we're not yelling and screaming, where we always go in trying to be professional and trying to come from a place of helping and a place of, we've done the research, so you don't even have to, here it is bookmarked, just open it up and read this.
Right. And yeah, it's not, and it's never been, well, trust my word, I've done the research. It's here, we've done the research, here it is, please look at this and give us your response. But we don't typically hear a response.
Right. And that's been that just can't continue to happen. No, that can't continue to happen. So you feel like their intentions are good. Why are we heading down this road? Why are we heading down this road of SEL, social and emotional learning, with a transformative lens? Because like you said, there are options that don't have to go through this transformative lens, which does teach things like to wear a MAGA hat is white supremacy. But however, if you wear a blue Democracy Now hat, it's not somehow.
Yeah.
So it's interesting because it's extremely slanted in one direction. And when we say that it's extremely slanted in one direction, again, I keep coming back to them saying that a little known fact is Nebo is one of the most conservative school districts, but they're not even looking. And that's the thing. Like, I'm wondering, like, who would you even, is it your preference right now with a brand new baby to be running for school board?
No. I didn't really want to run. But I saw what was going on, and my little girl, she's going to be ready for school here in 2 years, and I don't want her being taught some of the things that are being taught elsewhere. I mean, I don't think, well, I know our district is not as radical as, say, Salt Lake.
Or Davis County.
Davis County. Oh, I mean, geez, heaven forbid. But I want to make sure that my daughter's not taught that stuff. And I can't be the only parent. And I served in the Army for several years, and I didn't have anything to fight for anymore. And then this opportunity came up and says, you know what? If I don't want my kids to learn that, there have got to be other parents that don't want their kids to learn that. And so when I started getting involved and I started talking to parents and saying, well, where do you stand on this? Why? And I looked at the histories of how many candidates would run, and several of the candidates got their positions by default. Nobody ran against them. Well, that can't happen. These are elected positions. Why aren't more people running? And I think a lot of it is they don't feel like they have the time. They don't feel like they have the expertise. I've had several. I don't have a background in education, and I've had several people say, "Well, I would prefer a candidate with a background in education." But what I do bring to the table is I am super willing to do the research. I am objective in my approach. I am more conservative leaning, but I love to look at both sides of the argument. And the left do have, as well intentioned as they are, and they do make some mistakes in their thought processes, some of those ideas could benefit us in the future. But the radical way of doing that is totally wrong.
So what ideas? What are just give me 2 ideas that they have that you think could benefit us in the future?
That history is always written by the victor. I mean, growing up, I was homeschooled for a lot of it. So my history education is was much vaster than than what I learned in public school. And I love reading and research, and so I probably know more than what I would have learned in public school. But history does have can have a bias to it, depending on who wrote what and who's presenting what. And so the idea that history should include the bad things as well, I totally agree. We need to talk about what the bad things that happened in our history, but we can't focus on the bad things that happened in our history. We have to talk about the good and the bad. We have to talk about both. So we have to talk about the bad so we know what to avoid, but we have to talk about the good so that we know what to look for. This idea that the founding fathers, because they owned slaves or were a part of something that was totally normal in society at the time, and just totally discount every good thing they did, we shouldn't do that.
Yeah, I don't think anybody would want to be discounted for the bad things that they've done in the past.
Right.
We all have, and
especially because nobody's perfect.
right, exactly.
I mean, and I don't remember who said it, but somebody said we can't judge history by today's lenses.
Right.
We have to look at history through the lens of history. We have to look at why they did what they did for whatever reason. And we have to look at it from today and say, okay, well, America was not the only country to own slaves.
We still have countries today.
Yeah, we still have countries today with slavery, and not just North Korea. There are still African countries and Middle Eastern countries with legalized slavery. In fact, in some Middle Eastern countries, they didn't even ratify the anti-slavery stuff until like the 1960s.
Right. Yeah.
But we can, so America definitely wasn't the first.
So you would say,
talk about how even,
okay.
Sorry, yeah, but I'm talking about the good and the bad. Yeah, America wasn't the first country to have slavery, but why not talk about how, even though the country was formed, the 1776, why not talk about how in 1793, one of the colonies was already, or the states was already abolishing slavery. 70 years before the Civil War, there were already states moving to abolish slavery. Right.
I think that there's lots of conversations that can be had on race that are unifying, as opposed to, I just don't understand why people would adopt policies that will divide us.
Yeah, I don't know.
And Nebo is taking on 3 separate SEL programs. So
really, I knew that they were doing Castle, and I'd heard of.
No, they're piloting programs. So they're piloting.
Oh, okay.
They're piloting one program in which they're going to have the kids break out into different groups. And so one school recently sent out that said you can choose whether you want your book to be, so it's book clubs in the classroom. Do you want your book to be LGBTQ? Do you want it to be on racism in America? Do you want it to be on drug addiction, or do you want it to be on prisons? So, and then they have the kids break out into these groups, and one person is their leader, and they discuss these subjects in 7th grade.
Are these clubs after school?
No, this is their graded class. This is their English class.
Oh, geez.
So I guess that is kind of a runoff, but my question would be, why should somebody vote for you? What are you going to do? What are you going to do differently than what we've been seeing in the school board currently? Transparency
is number one. And as a representative, yeah, I represent the people who voted for me. I can sit on the board, but I don't represent the school. I represent the people who put me there. Parental rights, I wholeheartedly believe in, and making sure that I'm not just a rubber stamp. Every time, one of the other meetings, the closed sessions that I listened to, the board members were talking about how they're not subject matter experts. And so whenever somebody comes to them with a question, they just kind of shuffle them off to an expert so they don't get the message wrong. And I can understand that, because you want to have a unified message. You don't want to give out misinformation. But at the same time, why not say, you know what? I don't have the answer to that. Let me contact somebody and I will get back to you. When I first started getting into the school board meetings, I emailed all of the school board members, not just my member, and the answers were all the same. Oh, well, let me get you in contact with such and such. They know more about that than me. Oh, let me, and then that was the end of it. And that's not being a representative.
You have to wonder what it is that what they're doing, because it seems like you wouldn't run for office if you weren't passionate about what it is that you're doing, especially as these are volunteer positions. So I think they get a small stipend, but for the most part, these are volunteer positions. And so why is it that you would run if you're just going to push that off on someone else, especially when parents right now have probably never been more concerned, never been more wanting to be active, wanting to have a say in their children's education. And for you to push that off on other people, it's crazy to me, because they say that so much of what they're doing is so that the children feel seen, so that the children feel like they matter. But they are, and I'm doing my best to be generous here, they are making parents feel like they're invisible, that no matter what we do, we don't have a say. And we're hearing that. We're hearing teachers locally say, when parents bring up their concerns, saying, we're the experts. And I'm like, is anyone really the expert to raising our children than we are?
No one knows. Yeah, nobody knows my daughter better than me. I mean, besides my wife, and my wife probably knows her better. But I acknowledge that. I mean, they are in that position, and employees in that position, because they are a subject matter expert. But they also have to recognize that in their expertise, they are also having to support the parent in the education of that parent's child. It can't be us against them. It has to be an interaction between the subject matter experts and the parents.
Well, what you said was that the school board is not, they're not even trying to be subject matter experts. And that would be my concern, is that if you're going to volunteer for these positions, I would hope that you're doing it because you have a passion for the kids.
Yeah.
And you want to know what's coming into it, because you have such a huge responsibility.
Oh yeah.
It's not a matter of show up once a month to a meeting. Like, you have a huge responsibility to make sure that our kids get the very best opportunities.
Right. And if I don't know if you've looked at the proficiency rates for language arts, science, and math, and it's not just Nebo. I mean, this is a statewide problem, but their proficiencies in language arts, math, and science are in the 40s. This last year, I think mathematics dipped down into the high 30s, and that's sad. We should be focusing on educational excellence, making sure that those percentages go up. I mean, we can't be focusing on how they're feeling. Ben Shapiro says facts don't care about your feelings. We've seen an increase in misbehaving in schools, or misbehavior from students, and I think a lot of that, especially with this last pandemic, and they're focusing on the wrong things.
Oh yeah, kids would feel, I think that these issues that they have with their mental health, kids would feel a whole lot better and be a whole lot more empowered if they earned that.
Oh yeah.
If they earned, because wow, I didn't think I could do well on this report, but my teachers supported me on this report, instead of spent that time supporting me on 5 hours. 5 hours a week is what they want for SEL. 5 hours a week of just instilling social and emotional learning with a transformative leftist lens, because it is very leftist. We know this.
Oh yeah.
There's no objecting to that. You cannot find one that doesn't have a leftist agenda.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, for anyone who's going to watch this video, I encourage you to go to CASEL's website and search just the term parents, and click on the first article that comes up. It'll be an article that tells educators how to better sell SEL to parents who don't like the term social and emotional learning.
Right. Yeah, it's so you are going to be about transparency. People can reach out to you in person. You're going to get back to them yourself. You are not in this for any kind of lucrative whatever. In
No,
fact,
I still haven't even confirmed if it's a paid position or not.
yeah. that I know of, it is a very, because I know that at the state school board, it is, you would do better off working at McDonald's.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So they're very not, I think it's a small stipend, but I'm not positive. And is there anything else that you want to say?
Just that, my focus is on parental rights first and foremost, and educational excellence. I could go into the nitty-gritty of some of the decisions, specific decisions that the school board or administration has made that I would have spoken out against, but I think that would detract from my main message. So anyone who wants to reach out to me, you can. Yeah, on Facebook, Nebo Parents United, been for Nebo School Board. Yeah.
I appreciate that you are, I mean, you give me hope, because we need people to take their heads out of the sand and to stand up for our kids. And I know that there are people who are going to dismiss or say, we want a teacher. Teachers aren't standing. Teachers are afraid of losing their pension. But I know, because we've talked to several teachers who have
yeah, and I love that more teachers are coming out and saying, yep, you guys are spot on, because we've had to sit through professional development courses, and this is exactly what they're having us do. And you just said they're going to have them do 5 hours of SEL a week. That means 5 hours of not teaching what the teachers are being paid to teach.
Right. And that they're not prepared to teach. And
right.
Also that they often don't agree with. So
right.
We are forcing our teachers to live by lies.
Yeah.
That's what we're trying, and we're forcing our kids to do that.
Yeah.
And was it Stalin? I think it was Stalin who said, give me your children and I will control. I'd have to look it up again. So I'll look it up. But someone said that if you take over the children, you've got control of society.
Yeah.
And I saw today a post. Let me pull that up really quickly, and then I will let you go. But this post that I saw today. The communist Marxist 4-stage plan to take over the country. Stage 1, demoralization. Stage 2, destabilization. Stage 3, crisis. Stage 4, normalization. They've taken these kids through all 4 stages in just 2 years.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
We also know that they've not been able to prove that SEL works. They've not been able to prove that SEL through a transformative lens, this stuff, there's not enough studies. So why are we throwing this at our kids when there's not enough studies? So we need parents to stand up. And I'm really grateful.
Oh yeah.
So grateful, Ben, that you are taking the stand to stand up. I'm going to share this everywhere I can. I'm going to send it to have my husband edit it tonight, and it should be up in the morning, because it's so important that parents stand in the way of the nonsense and say no, and not be bullied in. And I just feel that about you. I know that, we're kind of cut from the same cloth, where it's just like, we're not going to bend.
Yeah. No. I mean, if I have to take my kids out and do homeschool, then I will. I value their education far more than propaganda and hate and division. I love anybody's kids too much. I wouldn't let anyone's kids go through that.
Right.
We all deserve the opportunity to a good education, to a great education. But we can't do that if we're trying to divide everybody into their own, these little community boxes, to pit each other against one another.
And that goes for everyone. That's not just, it's not a pro-white or an anti-white movement.
You're right.
Well, I really appreciate the time that you've taken. And so I will get this up, and good luck. Let me know whatever I can do to help. You've already said all of your terms, right? Yes, you've already said all the ways people can contact you.
Yes, let me double check on that, because my Facebook page is still new and not quite complete. So let me make sure.
And will you be at the delegate thing on Saturday?
I will try to be. I might not because my wife goes off of maternity leave and goes to work this weekend. So it all depends on if I can find a babysitter.
Okay, let me know, and we'll cut this out, but let me know if you need me to take boxes and go stand on your behalf, because I'm happy to.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't even have flyers yet. That's
Okay.
we were working on that, and
Okay.
boy, they're expensive too. But yeah, so my Facebook page is Ben Woodward for Nebo School Board.
Okay.
They can contact me there. I have a Gmail as well.
Did you send out letters to all the delegates?
I did not.
Okay, write them write
so-
something up today, and we'll get this on, and you can link this to it tomorrow. And you
Okay.
can send it out.
Some delegates have already reached out to me, and so I've been answering their emails. But yeah, email is ben4neboschoolboard@gmail.com. Ben, the number 4, neboschoolboard@gmail.com.
Great. Thank you so much, Ben, for taking
Yep.
the time. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much.
All right. Bye-bye.
Yeah.